And we are live. You're watching another episode of the Detective Diaries. I am your host, Greg Lawson. This is where I interview strange and interesting people I find along my paranormal journey. Last time we talked with Frank Sinelli. Frank is a holistic medicine guy and a paranormal investigator and just all around cool dude. Next time, we're going to be talking with Neil Story in the United Kingdom. Neil is a historian, military historian, and also pretty much a genius when it comes to military legends and ghosts and stuff like that. But today, we have Beth Darlington. She is a paranormal educator, paranormal explorer, paranormal investigator. And before I go on any further, let's bring her in because this is what it's about. Hey, Beth, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So what time is it where you are?
It's the delightful time of just past midnight here in London, in the UK.
So there's might be a good chance that we might see some sort of spirits or something around you. Is it like the building that you're in? Is it an old building or is it a pretty new building?
It is. I did some research. I had some help with a lovely lady called Penny Griffiths Morgan, who is also based here in the UK. The building that I live in is actually 160 years old. It's a Victorian building, Victorian flat. And trust me, when you go down the stairs, they're not exactly all even. But downstairs is a restaurant, but it used to be a butcher. So there more than likely would have been a butcher's family that would have lived up here and worked downstairs. So yeah, it's got some legs on it, as we say. It's got some years.
That's the cool thing. You go to a lot of anywhere in Europe, but the ones that I've seen is like in the UK. Some of the older like Victorian style buildings, older hotels, their stairs are just crazy. And I think we went to one. I think it was in Sherwood, a big hotel. And it was like something out of a Tim Burton movie. The staircase was all crazy and everything. So we met in Michigan last year, I think we decided, right?
Yes, that's right.
So for those who don't know Beth, she's got a big history in Australia. Were you born in Australia?
Yes.
Okay. And then you came from Australia and happened to stop through Michigan on your way to the UK. Is that right?
That's exactly right. And that's where we crossed paths. And I was telling everybody I'm making this big move to the UK, to London. And yeah, I'm still here, which is a good sign considering what the climate that we're currently in. So
yeah, no kidding. So are you considered a citizen there or?
Yes. Yeah, so I've got dual citizenship. Yes, so my mum's from England, so I have an Australian accent, but it's not a very strong Australian accent. So I've kind of got a bit of a half. Yeah. So yeah, that's how I can be here, which I'm very lucky about.
Well, cool. For everybody that is watching, if you could go down and click like, if you could share this broadcast, it would be great. In the comments section, if you could go in there and tell us where you're watching from. That would be awesome. I'm going to try to keep up with those. I think I got about 15 comments in there right now. And also, if you have any questions for Beth, please just put it in the comments and make it as short as you possibly can so I can read it. Otherwise, I get confused. So I asked Beth to come on today. I asked you to come on today because I have a real passion in education and training. When I was in the military, law enforcement, academia, I really like trying to fill my brain up as much as I can with useless information, and sort through that useless information and take little parts of it that I can use and put it in the right, the correct side of my brain to go ahead and use it. How did you get into Access Paranormal and doing the paranormal training kind of stuff?
I guess like with you, it started from obviously a shared interest, a love for this topic, and also finding a way to explain possible paranormal phenomena. And when I first started out, I obviously was watching those TV shows. I always, sort of honestly put my hand up and say I was one of those people. But obviously my view on how to investigate has changed considerably since. So this was probably about 12 years ago now. And I was originally actually living here at that point too for a couple of years and then went back to Australia. But what I experienced here in the UK really opened my mind in the fact that you can actually be a lot more active. It's not something you can sit and be an armchair person about. And I thought, I wonder if there's any places you can go to where you can learn how to do more of this, or techniques, or how to. And obviously going back to Australia, it was almost completely we're talking population wise again as well, so much smaller population. So when it came to trying to find anything as far as educational, not just practical, was very, very difficult. In fact, I couldn't find anything much at all, except for the Australian Institute of Parapsychological Research, which we know as APA. Great institution, really good academically based, but for somebody who wants practical information and how to, it wasn't quite that. The information provided is very important, but it wasn't quite that. So I was thinking, there's got to be some workshops around. So I ended up thinking, you know what, I'm going to create a website that's going to be about Australia. It's going to be about events. It's going to be about teams, and a central spot for paranormal investigators in Australia. There we go, accessparanormal.com. And people say, how did you come up with the name? It's like Access Hollywood. So it's a slight take from that, and started it from there. So originally it was just for investigators in Australia, just for learning, just for finding places. But as it's grown, it's just literally just taken on such a big international platform, which is fantastic, because online learning has grown in itself as a medium, as a learning management systems, as you know, has grown and become way more sophisticated and more affordable as well. And so when that's happened, I'm like, well, I can open to this, not just giving a platform or a directory for workshops or places where people can go and attend, but maybe actually start creating my own content that I've found that's been reliable to people to help them out, like tips and ideas. And it literally has just taken off from there. Yeah,
that's great. I think it's so important that people try to broaden their experience and their education in the paranormal field. So often people, the most training they have is sitting in their living room and watching a TV show. And you and I know that, a lot of times with TV shows that they're casting just for the show itself, not for the expertise of the individual. There are some shows out there, don't get me wrong, that they are experts. You look at Kindred Spirits, you look at the Halser Files, you look at many of the others. They really are. And some of the folks got into this field, didn't have a lick of training, a lick of education on it. But 4 or 5 years later, they are pretty close to experts on this stuff. So, there's different ways to go about it. But if you don't go and cross-reference your training with education, then you may be misinterpreting your findings.
Absolutely.
So, hey, June is an author. If you go to June Anderson's website, she writes some really cool ghost books. Hi, June. Thanks for
hi, June,
tuning in. She's calling from watching from Minnesota. Tim Murphy's watching from Ohio. Hey, Tim. Tim's a really good guy. He's helped me out in a lot of different ways. Looks like we got some. Do you know Allison?
I do.
That's awesome. That's really cool. All right. So Spooky Sisters, UK.
Yay.
What's up, girls? Who else we got here? We got some folks from Texas. We got we got quite a few people on there. Oh, wait. Hey, I'm trying to find there's Kat. Bam.
Yay. Hey, girl.
And also Ann.
Oh, hey, Ann.
Yeah, so thanks everybody for tuning in. This is going to be fun because I'm going to kind of go down a rabbit hole on this particular one. So what would be, yeah, I know I'm going to put you on the spot because what would be your favorite ghost story from Australia? Where and what is it?
Favorite ghost story. Now, it
Yeah.
depends if you mean one that I've experienced or one that I've heard. I know it sounds.
I will let you make that decision.
I'd have to say, I guess you could say my favorite would have to be Fisher's Ghost. And the Fisher's Ghost story is based in a location in Western Sydney called Campbelltown. And the fact that this particular ghost, and it was probably one of the first ghost stories that my dad ever told me. Now, this is a rare thing because my dad is as skeptical as they come and used to think it was a whole big joke that my sister and I were very open-minded to the possibility of an afterlife. So for him to have told this to me, I think it was very tongue-in-cheek. I don't think he realized exactly what was going to happen from that. And yeah, about this particular ghost that is meant to be seen to be pointing, and it's a ghost of Fred Fisher, I believe, and what he would have been seen to have done was actually point in the direction of where his body was, because he was murdered obviously in a way that was quite covert at the time. And so he actually is seen to sort of literally be pointing down to the creek, which is Fisher's Ghost Creek. There's actually even a festival each year as well now to commemorate it. It's become a bit of a thing. And yeah, he points down to this particular spot where his body is found. That is what the story or the legend has said. So I think as far as when it comes to Sydney ghost stories, I've got to say that's probably my favorite.
Yeah. So Ben says he loves that story.
Yeah, Jan Ben. Oh, lovely. Good to see you, lovely lady.
So
that's cool.
There's a lot of people out there that they might watch the TV shows every once in a while. And if they go out of town, they might go to a town that has a ghost walk and they might go on the ghost walk, or, when they're at the library. Nobody goes to the library anymore, do they?
Not at the
moment. They're at a bookstore. Wait, there's no bookstores left either. So when they're perusing Amazon, and they might look in Ghost or whatever like that. Well, that's one of those things is I think through your company and Access Paranormal, how do you get started? What would you tell people to do?
Well, as I said, normally tradition would dictate that it's often a library or somewhere of that sort. I would often look at the educational institutes that are around. I know it may seem a little bit dry by saying so, but I think they're a really good place to start because they've already got a lot of material within them. Yes, exactly. There's Society of Psychical Research, the SPR, which I'm a member of. They've got great information. They are based here in the UK. If you do become a member, you can have an online access to their library, which I have used. Which is fantastic, particularly in this day and age at the moment. So it's you really feel like you're sort of missing out, although their library is incredible. Like you literally just sort of like, it's like you just smell the old books and the knowledge when you walk in there. It's beautiful. I love it's only a short bus ride from here, but of course at the moment a little restricting. But I would suggest, definitely start looking. Yes, go, yeah.
Their building, are they at one of the universities, or do they have a freestanding building?
They have a freestanding building, so it's on its own. It's in in the UK they call a mews, which is like a sort of a private sort of street. Muses are beautiful. They're lovely old Victorian things, and I geek out about the history of them. But yes, so they've got it's a beautiful old building. There's just one floor. You just walk in, and you just feel like you've gone back in time. Right. And it's this, it's like the leather-bound books and the bookcases and the chair and the table, and Pete, who's there that runs it, is a fabulous gentleman, really lovely guy, and you just feel like you've gone back in time, and it's quiet. It's so quiet. It's just brilliant. So, but yes, we'll have to forego that just for a little while. Hopefully, it won't be for too much longer. But yes, it's fun. Yeah.
I know that you have a lot of experience with that organization, ASAP, and also the Ghost Club.
Yes.
A lot of people don't realize how, who created the Ghost Club and how long ago it was and stuff like that. Is that an active organization still?
Yes. All three of them are active organizations. The Ghost Club's been around for the longest, and it was literally just I think even ASIP as well, which is the Association of It's a scientific study of anomalous phenomena. Whew, thank you. I got it. Oh boy. And they're a spin-off of SPR, so that they kind of all know of each other. And literally, when you go to these particular organizations and their meetings and their discussion groups, 99% of the time you're actually meeting most of the same people. We all kind of all go to the same ones.
Right.
But if you want to kind of put it into a category, Ghost Club's a lot more social, ASIP's a lot more practical training investigator, and SPR's a lot more academic. And that's where you kind of get your different audiences from. And I just think it's great to have a good cross-section of all.
And that's kind of what you just said is what basically I tried to say in my book was, you need to be able to compartmentalize these different organizations because they all kind of have a different focus.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Yeah, you go to an SPR at their annual conference. It's obviously very research data, people bringing the information they brought from all the research that they have, their meta-analysis, all this kind of stuff, which is, again, I think is very interesting and it's good and it needs to be there, of course, in order for us to advance forward. And then, of course, I love ASIP's, training weekend that I went to just before COVID decided to rear its ugly head. I was able to, it was literally like the last event that I've ever been to paranormally, and it was fantastic, and it was good practical, like with you, your detective mind investigator kind of information. And of course, I always enjoy Ghost Club events because it's stories, it's remembering, they're almost like the romance of ghost stories or romance of the paranormal, where there was a candlelight storytelling at a particular location which everyone turned up to, so everyone's really quiet, and you're having ghost stories by candlelight. Yes, please. Like it's, there's this other side. Just because there's the educational and the more serious side of it doesn't mean that the romance of the paranormal and ghost story should also be left behind. Yeah,
that's fantastic. I think that's a lot. I'm real interested in history. I've been an investigator, a professional criminal investigator for 30 years, and I wanted to mesh my idea of the spiritual or paranormal realm with industry standard type investigation and also interviews, because that's where a lot of times I'll watch a TV show and I'm just like, no, that would get thrown out of court. Because
that's exactly
way leading the person down the rabbit trail there.
That's it.
And I've tried to, I try not to be pushy on stuff, but I've tried to help by writing this book.
Yeah, that's it.
It's definitely one step up, because a lot of this is about the individual experiencer, getting the proper information from them.
Yes. Exactly. That's exactly it. There's a gentleman named Alan Murdy who is very active within SPR and the Ghost Club. Lovely gentleman. But he's also a lawyer as well as so you get it from when it comes to witness, like you said, getting witness testimony and how that works in a court of law. But yet when it comes to the paranormal, that suddenly now is thrown out. Like if you have multiple witnesses to an event in the paranormal, it's like, well, it could be something, but if it's in a court law, then suddenly that has justification. So it's like really interesting when he throws that. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, you have an interview technique, you have a interrogation technique, and then you have a cross-examination technique. And there's multiple ways to go into that interview process of, are you just trying to get the facts? Are you, doing some sort of regression? Are you doing a cognitive interview? And so the more you learn about kind of how to ask questions, which it seems like it's real simple, but it is not. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes people don't hear the question the way they, that you meant it. Or I find a lot of times where people will have signs of deception when they're answering their questions. And, you're like, okay, are these signs of deception? You have to determine whether this person is actually lying to you about their event, or whether they're covering up something that may have affected the event, or something else that they just don't want to share with you, like the fact that they took a hit of, something, some ecstasy before they went into their ghost hunt or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
They don't want to share that with you, but they'll share their experience, and you'll pick up these cues of deception. And
Exactly.
you're like, wow, you know, maybe they did experience it.
Yeah, that's it.
So you talk about your toolkit.
Yes.
Right. What are you talking about when you talk about a toolkit?
It's the basics. It's just the smaller parts, or just the minimal requirement to kind of get started when it comes to investigating. So on the website, it's got, you know, there's a little section that says toolkit. It's like, okay, so for you to actually literally get started and head out, or want to look at getting into a place, or you want looking at private or residential investigating, this is the basics that you need. So toolkits are a really great way. It's like, these are just the simple things that you may need just to get yourself to get started. Yeah.
Okay. And those simple things, are you just talking about actual physical tools? Or are you also talking about the education, the ability to determine the difference between grandma orb and dust digital artifact orb?
All the different colors. I always like that one. That's my favorite.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
yeah, exactly. It's literally it's the tools. Yes. It's educational. It's apps. It's information. It's questions. It's stuff that you can download and actually use, like forms, anything like that. So yes, a virtual toolkit.
Sean Freddie answered, he said he glanced away. Was that a picture of Arthur Conan Doyle? And yes, it absolutely was. He was one of the founders of the Ghost Club, along with Charles Dickens and some other famous cool dudes. All of that, they were working out of Cambridge University and Trinity, right? Trinity College?
That's exactly right. They were, yes, originally for, I think SPR were, yes, as well. So it's the history and of the knowledge and the type of people that have been around and involved in these institutions. When you start, like you say, with Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, is like, it's just, it blows your mind a little bit when you sit there and think, I'm kind of sitting, like I said, it's kind of sitting amongst, you know, celebrities that just nobody really knows a lot about. Those particular gentlemen, yes, but when you're sitting in a meeting and you're with people that have been a part of these institutions for quite a while, you are sitting amongst really beautifully knowledgeable people,
Right.
and trying to absorb as much as you can, because with all respect, often when I've gone, I'm more than likely the youngest person there. So, and so, but yet there's such an encouragement to bring younger people into these particular organizations, because let's face it, you know, they need to continue onwards, and the information is very valid. So,
right. I pulled this photo. This is a photo. Charles Dickens is in this one. And it's one of the old psychical research, I believe, seance tables. There's a lot of cool stuff online if you get online and just do some Google searching out there. It's pretty cool. For those of you who just tuned in, if you can go down and like here, it would be great. If you could share this live broadcast, you would not believe how much that helps me out. I get a whole lot of hits when people start sharing. You can also go to my YouTube channel. It's the Paranormal Detective Greg Lawson YouTube channel. And all of these detective diaries are actually archived there. And I took all my old content off and I archived that, but all the new detective diaries are out. Right now, we're talking with Beth Darlington. She is a paranormal educator and paranormal researcher, paranormal explorer, paranormal investigator, and world traveler from Australia via United States to the United Kingdom. So that's where you are. What part of the United Kingdom are you in right now? What town and what is it near?
All right. So I am in good old Londinium. So I'm literally in London itself.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
easy. It's so awesome. I'm literally about a 15-minute walk from the Thames River. So it's just beautiful. And I say beautiful, but when you look at it, it's just turning brown water. And a lot of people think, is the sewer system actually working still? I'm like, it's fine. It's been upgraded since the Victorian age. But yeah, great little spot in southwest London. And again, it's this part, anything that's below or south of the Thames River wasn't affected by the 1666 fire. So a lot of the stuff, although it was a lot more marsh and country, a lot of the buildings here actually tend to be a little bit older than what's actually in a certain area or around the City of London Wall part. In the northern part, of course, if you go past that particular border where the fire actually stopped, obviously you have a lot of the older buildings, but it's actually kind of nice to be sort of close to the Thames and actually have been a very nice old historic area, and actually quite haunted in some spots as well. I mean, it's London. I mean, pick a ghost, pick a corner.
Right. Yeah. So Lynn and I both absolutely love London. We love going there. There's so much history, and it's just the cool people there, and the food is really good. So we really like it. Kat had a comment. She said also, Toolkit definitely has psychological aspects also, right?
Yep.
Yeah. You got a compliment here. Hold on. Let's see. Jackie. Beth is such a hive of paranormal information. So,
oh, bless. Thank you. Oh, she's lovely.
You're doing great things out there.
Oh, thank you.
Sean also responded back. I did not know this, but apparently Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was also a member of the Order of the Golden Dawn. Did you know?
Wow. No, I did not. There you go.
See, Sean is one of those guys that are full of useless information also. Thanks, Sean. That's pretty cool, though. He was a really interesting guy. I mean, he was obviously just an incredible, prolific writer. I love his stuff. But I believe it was after he lost his son that he really became into the spiritualistic movement and was looking for things on the other side, right?
Yeah, a lot of skeptics didn't find him the best person to cross paths with because his steadfast belief in the possibility of an afterlife. Sure.
So, and you just brought up skeptics. Let's go ahead and jump to that. I always say to people, they'll look at me, and I've been accused of being a debunker, and I'm not a debunker, but if it's not paranormal, it's not, I mean, if there's a simple explanation, it's not. And they accuse me of being a skeptic. Well, I'm an investigator. Of course I am a skeptic. If there's a continuum, skeptic, or cynic would be on one side, and gullible would be on the other side.
Yes.
And the skeptic is someplace floating around in between, trying to make a good determination of what this thing really is. So you talk a little bit about that. What are your thoughts on skepticism?
It's healthy, but as you've mentioned, that little part in the middle is the best place to be. And I think also as an investigator, it's good to have I call it a shade of grey. Always be a shade of grey, and it's okay for that shade of grey to change. So when it comes to skepticism, I think it's good to have good, healthy skeptics around, working alongside investigators and working alongside those who classify themselves as believers as well. I think it's good to have all parts of that. I'm definitely a shade of grey. There are times where I'll be working on a case or I'll be doing some research and I'll start to kind of lean a little bit towards the believer side a bit, because I think, well, that could actually be a possible, I don't know. And then there'll be other bits and pieces and I'll be like, oh no, that's a big bag of you know what. So I mean, like I can smell that's not true, right? You know what I mean? So but it really is important being as grey as you can in that, and it's okay to move from either side. A lot of people think, oh no, I must always stay cynical, skeptical, whatever you feel that you are in some aspects, but it's actually okay to move from side to side and allow that, because that's how we grow. Reading material that might make you, like I say, often it's like eating a lemon, some of this material sometimes, because it can feel so uncomfortable if it can be really kind of scathing, but it's important to read it because we've got to challenge our own beliefs, and so we don't get too stuck in our own confirmation bias for too long.
Somebody or some couple of folks that were really good at that was Brad and Barry Kling with Ghost Lab.
Oh,
guess what? Brad is watching. Oh my God. Thanks, man. I'm hoping I will sucker him into coming on and doing one of the diaries with me. But he went down to Australia. You guys did some Brad and Barry and you did some stuff down in Australia, didn't you?
Yeah, we got the boys from Texas, the down under in 2014, so it was about 6 years ago now, and we just had an absolute ball. They were we only really just started to get to know them. I worked alongside a beautiful paranormal group called Australian Paranormal Society (APS), run by Bill and Mandy, and we just had the best time. They looked after the Melbourne side of it, and I was looking after the Sydney side of it, and it was just it was a huge event for the time for Sydney and for Melbourne as well. No one had really done anything like that before. And the guys are just, I mean, literally there has to be something wrong with you don't like these guys. They are so down to earth, so much fun, really knowledgeable, very approachable. And we just had such a great time. And everybody came away learning so many new different techniques. And that's the other thing. It was all the different ideas that they brought with them as well. And the information and the recordings that they had captured over the years too. So it was just, we just had a great time and so very lucky. And we always keep saying, we're going to do it again. We're going to do it again.
Did you go see their talk when you were there in Michigan?
Yes, I did, of course. Absolutely. I wouldn't have missed it for the world.
I think that might have been one of the best talks there. They really knocked it out of the park. It was really cool to watch both Brad and Barry up there, and they did a really freaking super job on it.
Oh gosh, yeah. Just their techniques. Like they explain things really well. They use demonstrations and they get people up there and chatting and questions. It's just really good interactive stuff.
So Timothy, I guess you went with Murphy to some asylum or something. What was that?
Yeah. I definitely have to go back to the asylum for sure. Oh my gosh, I had such a great time. There are so many places I still want to go back to as well. I was hoping to get back to America again this year, but of course, for the first time in 8 years in a row, I'm actually not going to be going to America at all for doing anything paranormal, which is a bit sad, but obviously we all understand the reasons why at the moment. For now, hopefully temporary, things will hopefully shift at some point. But oh my gosh, there's so many great locations I still need to get back to. Asylums are my favorite. And it's terrible, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. There's a lot of places popping up all over the United States right now, because I think they realize that there's money to be made in the paranormal, and there's a lot of very interesting new places that are kind of popping up other than your traditional stuff. Yes. So I want to get back to skeptics here for a second. You had mentioned Kenny Biddle. I think he's in the U.S.
Yes.
I don't know him. What's his background?
He's very laid back. He's a really lovely guy. I've been sort of following. I actually have been following Kenny for about 4 years now, and it just came across obviously on social media, and I find that his approach is very open to having questions from anyone who has a question about sort of from a believer angle. So he's I guess it's like he's one of the safer skepticals, but is a skeptic people, but he's not like to the point where he'll bend. Like he'll call a spade, but he's very, very approachable. And I find that is such a nice relief to have for someone who's very much into the skeptic side. If he goes to all the science conventions, he's a big science nerd as well, and obviously Comic-Con and stuff like that. But he's actually a really, really friendly guy. And him and I have geeked out on so many different topics, and often you would think, well, he's a skeptic. I'm being a paranormal investigator. I'm probably from the outside in considered a believer. We shouldn't be talking at all. It's like cats and dogs, you know what I mean? It's like, don't go near each other. But we just get along really well. But I just really enjoy his approach. He's open. He's like, he has a weekly on live thing at the moment, a skeptics bar. He'll have a drink and he'll say, ask me questions and I will answer it. And if I don't know, I will say, I don't know. And I think that's very honorable as well. It's a learning thing. And he's passionate. He loves the paranormal as well, loves the topic. And that makes the best skeptics, the ones that actually love the topic of the paranormal, not there to cut you down. They're there to learn and help as well. So. Yeah.
And that's the key, right? Because let's say a Skeptic magazine, oftentimes they come across as condescending.
Yeah.
And And I understand if somebody comes with them. I'll use the orb example again, and it truly is, just a digital artifact on your digital camera from some sort of reflection or some sort of anomalous thing of dust, and it's easily explained away. There's a difference between explaining it the way I just explained it and rolling your eyes and going, "Oh my God, really?" Blah 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 blah. And so it has a lot to do with how they come across, right? And Richard Saunders is down in Australia. Is that correct?
That's right. Richard's a lovely, lovely guy. Again, he takes a very similar approach, but obviously from Australia as well. And he's very, very active too. Very active. He does his own. He does the Skeptics Zone podcast there. He hosts the Skeptics Convention as well. And again, he's somebody who's active within he'll go to a psychic fair. He'll go to the Mind Body Spirit Festival, which is a festival in Sydney as well. And he will go to these instead of just kind of sitting comfortably from his chair, just going, well, I think it's this and I believe it's this. He'll actually go and talk to the people who run the stores, who do these kinds of things. And he's been at the Paranormal and Spiritual Expo as well. And I've caught up with him there a couple of times too. So, and he'll be asking questions on it and on the podcast, and he'll then interview people and have that at the Skeptic Zone podcast, which is actually one thing I really love about it. Because at first when I was interviewed, I thought, oh gosh, do I brace? What's this going to be like? Because you don't know what's going to happen on the editing suite. It was exactly as it was one of the best interviews I've had, and I've been interviewed a couple of times on that particular podcast. So they represent people as they speak and tell their story, as opposed to trying to find a way to, this is pseudoscience. Why are you talking about this? Why do you believe in this? You're wasting your time. This kind of stuff. So he's another great individual.
Kat added in that Kenny has apparently a show called Three Tortured Souls.
Ooh, very cool.
I have not heard of. So I'm going to have to check that out. For those of you who may have just tuned in, you're watching the Detective Diaries. I am speaking with Beth Darlington. She is a paranormal educator, explorer, researcher, investigator, world traveler. And we're talking about all things paranormal. If you could go down and click like, it would be great. If you could share this broadcast, it would help me out so much. If you have any questions for Beth, please keep them as short as you can. Put them in the comment section, and we will definitely get to you. Sarah from Wales, man. We got people from all over the world at this point. We got Australia. We got UK. We had, I think, somebody from Cuba a while ago. Maybe that might have been a spy. I don't know.
Good luck with that, hey?
Yeah. So, I was speaking with Rosemary Ellen Guiley a couple of years ago, and I relayed a story where a man said, well, it's paranormal, so, we don't have any experts in the paranormal.
Yeah, Q.
Rosemary. Yeah. That's the first time I've ever saw Rosemary get pissed off.
Yeah. And understandably.
Yeah, she was like, what are you talking about? I was like, hey, I didn't say that. I'm saying this guy said that. So we sat down and she basically went through the gamut as far as, what's an expert in the paranormal field? Is it just because you have a TV show that makes you an expert? Is it just because you have a master's or a PhD in parapsychology? Does that make you an expert? And what about the experts in religion? Priests, ministers, clerics, isn't that based on a philosophy also? So what do you think about as far as paranormal experts?
It was and has been, I think, as you know, still is a term that a lot of people say. You just don't ever say that you are a paranormal expert. You just don't. That part of it I agree with, but because I believe for myself that an expert is something that other people will term you for. It's not something you should call yourself personally. I think that's when it starts to get a bit murky, like, oh, I'm a paranormal expert. And sometimes if you're doing interviews with media or TV shows or radio, they will go, oh, well, you're, Beth Darlington, paranormal expert. And like, oh, you probably should have checked with me with that, because it's kind of, so, but yeah, I find the term expert is something that should generally be be something that's given to a person as something that you kind of just take and term for yourself. But there definitely is experts. There's people that have been studying, half the people, think about the people that are part of SBR and all the research that, is, when you walk into that library, those books are written by experts within the paranormal. Although, like you said, philosophy and religion, just because it's not fully proven, they can be an expert in a subject matter. Doesn't mean whether or not that's actually 100% provable. They've got the background and the knowledge for that particular subject. So yeah, I think it's definitely something that, as a field of interest, we should really kind of push the boundaries and say, no, we should be able to call people experts.
That's something that you threw in there, subject matter. So in the United States, in court, basically you have different types of witnesses. One of them would be an expert witness, and that typically means that they have a high level, a professional level degree, master's, PhD in whatever the subject is. Then they have a certain amount of years working in that subject, certain amount of years teaching that subject, and that would be your typical expert witness. But then there's also subject matter experts. Mm-hmm. And a subject matter expert could be a cop that just has a high school diploma and has worked as a traffic officer for 10 years and gone to advanced reconstruction reconstruction school as far as crash reconstruction. And at that point, that individual could be considered a subject matter expert. Right. So that's what I try to push toward people is, part of just going out and watching your EMF meter is also reading and doing your research of the science behind it. Yeah. So is it, you feel basically the same way? You have some academic expertise and you have practical expertise. Right?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. Where people are experts in how to use, or even just, there's expert equipment creators as well. People can be, like you said, there's academic, but there also could be experience experts as well. Yes, I agree 100%. Yeah.
Now you say, let's say equipment experts. That's one thing I really like about the paranormal is people are always trying new things, new experiments. Is there any particular thing that you like to use when you go to let's say just a standard big building, haunted big building, and you go in, and anything you like specifically?
Oh, I'm pretty boring in that sense. I'm a bit old school in that way. I kind of do like going out there and kind of having your voice recorded or having recording equipment to record what happens when you're out there. That's kind of my thing. But I do like you said, okay, so I watch some other shows, but as well, and sometimes, as we know that there are people that will create equipment from that. I know some people can sort of frown upon that, but I think, we're trying different things and we're looking at different ways in which we can find out what's going on in the environment. I personally, for myself, I'm more of I use equipment more to detect the environment instead of trying to create or charge it. But then again, I've used EM pumps in the past before. I've used static detectors. I've had really interesting results using REM pods as well. Again, the jury's still out. We don't know, but it's the fun in finding out. I think that sometimes, we can get bogged down in the seriousness, but I think it's actually quite fun to figure out how this works, why this works. Why does this particular tool or this particular equipment work in this particular location, but it doesn't in the other? And it's good if you can get repeatable and times to use the equipment, and that can be quite rare for a lot of us, because often a location you'll be paying for it, or the access to it can be very few and far between, particularly right now. But I'm a little bit traditional in that way. I do like my Mel meter. I don't mind it because it's kind of multifunctional, and again, it's more observational use for it. But I always encourage people, like, go out, try stuff.
And that's one of the things I think turn off a lot of people is they go to a ghost hunt and nothing happens, and they're sitting there waiting for something to happen. Nothing happens, and so I see where a lot of people bring in the gadgetry, something that has blinky lights, something that makes noise. It makes things a lot more interesting.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly.
Yeah. And so I've seen some of the folks do some stuff like with spirit boxes. And the interesting thing is, you have this thing going on in your brain that when you hear noises, you're trying to make sense of those noises. Is it an animal? Is it somebody trying to talk to me? Is it a threat? Is it not a threat? That sort of thing. And that can make your brain create things. And it's, if people suggest things like, oh, did you hear it? It said my name. And you're like, yeah, I think that's what it was.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it can easily happen that way. And I completely get it. Why? Because I've been in Hunadora Castle over in Romania. Matter of fact, I think Anne was there. Anyway, we went to Hunadora, also known as Corvin Castle, if you want to look it up online. And Vlad the Impaler was imprisoned there for a short amount of time. And I sat in one of the towers with a video and audio recorders going for, I don't know, a couple hours. Just sitting in that tower,
wow,
boring out of my mind. I can completely get why somebody would want something that's more active. And I find it interesting, the Estes method of using a spirit box, of instead of everybody being able to listen to the spirit box, you plug headphones into it, or you hook it up as headphones and let only one person hear what's coming out of the spirit box, and that person is the interpreter, and they will repeat whatever they hear. And I really like that method. If somebody's going to use a spirit box, I think that's really good.
It's so and interesting, the results that come through. Like you said, it eliminates the possibility of confirmation bias, or did you hear that? I heard this. Oh yes, the herd mentality in that sense, where we kind of just automatically want to kind of be a part of the group, even if and it's more subconscious in that way as well. We're not deliberately trying to deceive, sort of thing. So
thank you, Kat. I knew Kat would pull out what the word was.
Yeah, apophenia. So apophenia is a difference to pareidolia. Audio pareidolia just means a voice. Apophenia means you've actually got meaning to the voice, so it comes from someone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Cool.
So, nice let me ask. Let's go to Sarah. Have you had any bad experiences in places for readings, or atmosphere, that sort of stuff?
Myself, not bad. It was just intriguing. I was in a location, myself and one other person, and it was actually during the day, which is really interesting. A lot of people often seem to think it just happens at night. And we've been into this particular building a couple of times, and we're doing a bit of we're basically sussing it out during the day. So at nighttime, we knew if there was any hazardous areas. And we walked back into it, and I mean, the condition wasn't great. And I'm being really G-rated here. I mean, it was not great at all. And so I walked down the hallway, and as I was walking down, I suddenly just thought, I just feel really tired. I think I'm going to sleep here. Yeah, I think I'm just going to kind of just rest here. There is no way I'll be sitting on that floor. I was having trouble walking on it. Like, it was sticky. And my friend looked at me and I said, well, what are you doing? I was like, I just want to sleep here right now. It's the middle of the day. We'd been there for an hour or two, but for some reason down this particular hallway, I wanted to go to sleep in that particular, that spot. And he's like, no, this is not good. I'm like, no, it's okay. It's all right. I also got a bit of a pain in the back of my head at the same time. Now, I've been told by mediums that that's a possible something trying to take you over. I take it with a grain of salt, but that's what I've been told. My friend managed to grab a hold of me and said, no, you're not sleeping on that floor. Took me out. Once I got outside, it's like almost like a breath of fresh air, and suddenly my energy returned. And that was the last time that ever happened. We went back into the location, never happened again. It was this strange change. And again, it's not really negative. It was just something very intriguingly interesting with my energy levels, I guess you could say. And of course, I looked at the floor and I was like, why was I so tired? Ew.
And that's something that we do so often. The spiritualism has turned to this technical thing to where we want gadgets to prove, and we want to be able to say that we're using some sort of scientific method to find this stuff when the scientific method is based on repeatability. Yeah. And typically you don't get much repeatability in the paranormal. That's why I believe it's something completely different. It's if we're looking for the normal, we're not going to find the paranormal. Yeah. I think the paranormal is more metaphysical than it is something that is affecting. I mean, obviously atmosphere can change, things can change, but I don't know whether we actually need these gadgets. I think maybe human beings are predisposition or we're already geared. We already have our toolkit up here. Yeah. Observing, hearing, tasting, smelling, feeling, and being able to interpret. What do you think?
Absolutely. I've heard that many times. And I agree with it too. Of course, you've got to know you've got to be aware of how your body is built to survive as far as fear response. So I think that's important to keep in mind. So yes, we are the best paranormal investigation instruments out there. We will far surpass any REM pod, or static detector. But at the same time, we see shadows at the corner of our eyes and not detail, and that's because we're built to see movement to be able to survive in a primal situation. But then that's heightened in darkened spaces. And at nighttime, and people, I saw shadows at the corner of my eye in the middle of the night. I'm like, you will. So I think knowing your equipment's limits is really important. But yes, I think our bodies are great indicators, definitely great indicators.
We have a check-in from Eva Galindo from Gulf Shores, Alabama. She is my mother-in-law. Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom.
And let's see who else we got here. We got Brad chimed in again. Experience is the best tool. Getting out there and experimenting and doing those things, I think is huge. It's not just about researching online. Sarah also had another question. Would a spirit let you know if you were unwelcome? If you're an unwelcome visitor, do you think?
I've been with people in investigations where they felt that there's been they felt unwanted, and there tend to be people that are a lot more sensitive to paranormal situations. I'm about as sensitive as this mouse, like literally. It's got more psychic ability than I do. But I also believe in understanding and being intuitive and listening to yourself as well. So I think it's important if you feel unwelcomed in a place, to not go in there if you don't trust yourself to be in that particular spot. For me, I'm there for the experience. So if I felt unwelcomed, I push myself in there. At first, when I first started investigating, I was like, no bueno. It's not happening. But now I'm a lot more. I have a lot more courage. And I tend to just push through it, to me, because it's an experience thing. So if something negative is going to happen, well, it's just going to have to happen. That's how I work with it. So
that's that evidence we're looking for. We want to go in there, and if that's what it is, then that's what it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I have a couple of pictures of you. Ooh, actually, before we do that, team versus loner. I go out with groups just because it's fun, right? I mean, I like going to these historical places and seeing these things. But if I'm going to do a serious investigation, I always go alone and, have my experience. What do you think are the pluses and minuses of either being in a team or working alone?
For me personally, I like both, and that's why I consider myself an independent paranormal investigator. And a lot of people, when I first used to say this, will say, well, that's really unsafe. You're promoting the fact that you're going out to locations on your own. You need to, what about health and safety? I'm like, whoa, let's back this up a little bit, because that's not quite what I mean. What I mean by being an independent paranormal investigator is the fact that I work on my own as an entity, in the sense of that I'm not part of a paranormal team. I used to be for a year and a half, and it was great, and I learned a lot, but I feel I gather and learn much more on my own working alongside other teams. So I'm not associated with just one team. just that group, just those locations. I get to help people out as well. So if someone's they're dealing with a case, they're like, oh, look, I'm not sure, it might be a bit over my head, or I need a bit of help, I can jump on in and help, and I'm not annoying anybody else. And because I'm not part of a team, I'm literally my own entity. And so I'll be able to help out with that. Also with events as well. I've done lots of lovely events alongside with other groups and teams and people. And I've been able to do that because I literally am my own. And that's what I've always loved about being, Access Paranormal in itself, is being able to have that flexibility. I've just learned from so many more different investigators as well. But again, I really believe that it's good to get used to investigating in a team first before looking at being independent. You get a lot of an idea of the different dynamics of how the different roles are, what people do, how a team works together. Ethics as well, really important. Depending, finding your feet. Do you like to go to just public and historical locations and kind of test stuff out, or do you really want to get in and kind of help people with any problems that are happening in their home? And being a part of a team or a group, I think, is a really good sounding board to find that stuff out. And then if you ever want to venture out on your own, then by all means.
Cool. I couldn't agree more. I know for me, because I keep my investigations as simple as I possibly can, only digital and audio video, only digital and audio, audio. I can keep my investigation very clean and not get off into the weeds, so to say. Melly from the UK had a question. I don't know this person. Halana
Balavsky. I'm not aware of that particular name, unfortunately.
No, I don't know. I don't know them either. Sorry, Melly. Don't got one for you. But Melly responded with,
Oh.
So, wow, man, we have been talking for 56 minutes. That's crazy.
How time flies.
I know, it's weird. I got a couple of pictures of you though. Where were you here? You were speaking.
That was at Paracon Australia. I think it was either the second one. I think it might have been. Okay. That was a great talk. It was in a beautiful old building in a place called the Blue Mountains, which is where I used to live as well, which is great. So it's great to have a paranormal convention in your neighborhood, and a lovely old building called the Carrington. And it was in the middle of winter-ish as well. So we were just getting to, well, it was May, so May to June, obviously in Australia. So it was getting quite cold. I think it snowed about a month after that particular event for half a day. Yes, we do actually have snow in Australia. And particularly, we have a ski season. It's all good. And the talk was about demonology versus mental health, which is one of my big sort of passions as well, is where demonology is actually come from, and why people are thinking the way they think of it today, and why they attribute it to certain things and experiences. And that was one of the talks that I gave, which I absolutely loved giving. It was probably one of the biggest events as a speaker that the room was packed. We had at least 50, 60 people, which is a lot of people in Australia. The convention itself had about 80. So most people were in my talk.
So it was in Michigan Paracon then.
I wouldn't mind talking there one day. Oh goodness. But yeah, it was a great day and a great weekend as well. Lots of fun.
I got this one too.
Oh my goodness, yes. I was a part of a series called In Tenebris, which is Latin for in darkness, and we explored some very dark sort of topics. That particular location that I'm walking through there is one of my favorites, I must admit. Is probably one of the most active places I've ever investigated. And when I talked about walking through the floor and feeling tired, it was actually that corridor. So, which is interesting. And it was, a great show. It was with Moonlight Media, Australian production company. And we looked at all different types of topics. We looked at suicide. We looked at Ouija boards. We looked at places where murders had happened. We went into the darker side of the paranormal. It was really confronting, but geez, it was good. Great learning.
Wow. Guess what? Brad Blair chimed in. What's up, Brad Blair? Brad Blair is he's the head of Michigan Paracon. Yeah. So, Madam Blair, I don't know. I don't know this person. I don't know.
No, I'll have to check it out now. I'm intrigued.
I need to do some more research or something. Being the paranormal detective, I should know stuff like that.
And being a paranormal educator, so should I. So
that's right.
Always learning, always learning.
Thanks for calling us out, Melly. So we have been talking for a whole almost an hour, and something just happened.
Ooh, cool.
Something just happened with something. Oh, there it is. Okay. Tell everybody where they can find you. And if you have anything coming up, I'm guessing you don't. I don't know. Everything this year got canceled on me. So where can they find you, and what do you got coming up?
Well, the most obvious is Access Paranormal, as you can see. AccessParanormal.com is my website. You'll be able to find all the links to some really great, helpful information there, learning content. You'll obviously ways to get in contact with me as well, email and social media. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram, obviously on Facebook as well. I've got a little series coming up next month on London poltergeists. I've got 3 poltergeists I'll be talking about all around London, and I'm actually going to not only just talk about them on the Friday, then on the Saturday morning I'll actually go to the location of where these poltergeist cases have come from as well, and I'll sort of do a bit of a live feed and wander past these particular locations too. So that's Poltergeists of London. I'm doing a little series, as said, on Facebook and YouTube, which is also Access Paranormal has a channel there as well.
That's awesome. Hey, I can't thank you enough for staying up past midnight just to talk to me here in Texas, broadcasting all over the world, apparently Alabama, Florida, Michigan, Connecticut, Australia, all over the place. I really appreciate you doing this. And I'm hoping one day that we'll be able to work on something together, or at least learn something. I'd like to come to some of your talks. So
yeah, that'd be fantastic. So welcome.
So thank you very much, and I'm gonna send you on your way. If there's anything I can do for you, you know where to find me.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Thank you for being here very much. So that was Beth Darlington. She is a paranormal investigator, researcher, educator. She is based out of the United Kingdom right now, but she is from Australia. And I can't thank her enough for coming on. Thank everybody that tuned in. If you could, go down and like, share, and write any comments. Beth and I will get with you in the comments section and answer any questions that you may have. The next show, I'm going to have Neil Story on. Neil is a historian and a military historian, all around cool guy. And hopefully he'll be able to come on here, I think maybe on Saturday, and tell us some really cool legends and ghost stories in the UK. So thank everybody so much. If there's anything I can do for you, you can find me on my Facebook, or you can go to my YouTube channel, the Paranormal Detective GregLawson.com. Thank you. See you guys later.